maybe I'm wrong, but I haven't seen any like calculation there. They said just, okay, this is the price we should use for settling the trade. Done. That case closed, innocent.
So it's about the scalability and it's about the versatility. So that's the difference between us and Chainlink.
Could you kind of break down the difference between push oracle and pull oracles?
And so Morpho, Pyth, or this vault company, RE7, basically didn't claim any responsibility and the user lost its funds.
If you're an oracle, you deliver the price. Period.
Welcome back to The Rollup, your home for technical talks and open conversations that shape the modular future. Nothing on today's show is to be construed as financial advice. You can see our full disclosures list at therollup.co/ventures. Sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode after a quick word from some of our awesome partners.
Ladies, gentlemen, Anons, and Degens, it is stablecoin season, brought to you by your favorite, the best in stablecoins, Frax. USD dollar stablecoin backed by the best in the business, the Biddle Fund by BlackRock and Superstate. This is stablecoin season. It is the yield-bearing stablecoin by Frax, coming soon to a chain near you.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to The Rollup. Today we have an episode to discuss some of the latest happenings in the Oracle landscape in crypto, amongst other interesting dynamics in the fast and cheap blockchain scaling space. Notably, a lot of rollups and fast applications on them. So lots of fun topics to discuss today. Marcin, Jakub, welcome to The Rollup.
Thanks for having us. Awesome to be here.
Hi, guys. Great to be here.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I think what better way to start a conversation about oracles than to discuss the recent happenings in crypto regarding oracles. Two very interesting things have happened in the last 48 hours, actually. One was Polymarket was hacked for $7 million because of an UMA Oracle dispute problem, which we can talk about. Maybe, Rob, if you want to pull some information about that up, that'd be cool, because I'm a little bit out of the loop there. But the more pressing thing, in my view, that got crypto Twitter's attention was HyperLiquid. So kind of TLDR, and then I'd love to hear y'all's opinions about what happened and why this is problematic. So basically, there was this coin Jelly on HyperLiquid, and essentially how HyperLiquid works is there's this vault called HLP, and it essentially takes the opposite position of all the traders on the exchange. And of course, it's quite profitable because people trading on leverage in crypto are degens and aren't very profitable. And so this has been a very successful, low risk yield product in crypto for a while. And essentially what happened is somebody took out a massive, I believe it was a massive long position on this Jelly token. And so this HLP product had to take a large short against it. And then somehow they pumped this token from really low market cap, maybe a couple million, all the way to 10 or 20 million. So very low liquidity, low market cap token. But this person trying to exploit HLP essentially took out a multiple $1 million long position on it, forcing HLP to take a massive short. What HyperLiquid did was they essentially reverted the price of their Oracle, and they overrode their Oracle through their validator set, reset the price to give the attacker a very small loss, and the profit of HLP went very down, a little sideways, and then right back up to where it was. And so this all transpired while Binance and OKX decided to list futures of this Jelly token immediately as they found out that HyperLiquid was under fire, suggesting that they are a bit worried about HyperLiquid's dominance, perhaps. And so this is an example of an Oracle provider being basically reverted back to the validators of HyperLiquid, which is very, very small set. So I'll shut up now, but that is my TLDR. Jakub, Marcin, what's your take from the Oracle lens on this situation? What are the good and bad and ugly here? And what can we learn as an industry from this event? Feel free to be very, very blunt. I think that the audience would appreciate some cold, hard takes.
Yeah, so I would say Oracle is usually a very boring topic, very technical one, until something like this happens. And it's great because everyone recognizes that actually it's pretty important, crucial, and core to the protocol. Basically, like setting the price has got like enormous power of controlling like what happens to the protocol. And also like HyperLiquid is like pretty interesting animal because they started with a super simplistic model for their oracles, basically. And we are seeing like in many occasions, like we talk to a protocol, we describe like what Oracle does, and they say, nothing fancy. Basically, we can take the price from Binance. We do not need to, let's say, pay you guys anything. It's like super simple. It's basically like 2 hours of work, get a response from Binance, HTTP, put that on chain, and job's done. What's the waste of money like building an Oracle service? And it works until it doesn't, as it occurred. Like it's like a lot of tricky questions, a lot of balances, a lot of trade-offs in building oracles. You just need to put some check and balances, like how to actually sanitize the price, how to curate the sources. In first place, whether you should rely on the price of jelly being taken from such a low liquidity market, etc. So yeah, I'm not going to call anyone blame here, etc. For me, it's like an amazing showcase, like how oracles are important, and it should be, let's say, handled by the external, professional, and unrelated third party for the good of the protocol.
Cool. Anything to add there, Marcin, before we kind of transcend into the Polymarket story as well?
Well, I believe the question is, at the end of the day, HyperLiquid didn't, got much damage. Even so, they did profit from the whole situation. It is pretty surprising how they approached that. But at the end of the day, the market was very low cap, and there was like a large long position. Looking on the Oracle for perps, for lending markets, for real world assets, for proof of reserves, all of those are within the Oracle umbrella, but all of those animals are behaving very differently. Some are updating just once every 24 hours, some are even less frequent. And for perps, it's very important to have super accurate pricing because of the long and short positions. Over the years, we've seen, I believe, at least 15 or maybe even more like Oracle manipulation, mispricing events, and so on. HyperLiquid, the reason it's so peculiar is because they actually own the whole set, and they could basically print even higher or lower number at the end of the day, right? Like literally, if you understand that they took it from almost the finger, at least to my knowledge, like they didn't give any like formula how they came up with this specific number to settle the market. Maybe I'm wrong, but I haven't seen any like calculation there. They said just, okay, this is the price we should use for settling the trade. Done. That case closed, innocent, whatever. So it's very, very interesting. So yeah, those are my 2 cents.
There's a couple of knock-on effects, I think, for HyperLiquid specifically, where I think now you know that you have like this backstop. Like, for example, they call Trump being in office like the Trump put. Like, stocks and everything's going to do well because you got the Trump put. It's kind of like now you've got like this HyperLiquid put where, if anything ever happens to HLP, you know that they are going to step in and make sure that their depositors are going to be taken care of regardless of how. And so that's going to, increase more deposits likely, or at least make people think it's less risky, probably lower yields. And it also puts the exchanges in a really weird spot where they just showed their hands. Like they basically said, like, we don't even care. We're willing to just try to destroy other exchanges in the space. And that has knock-on effects where smaller exchanges are now going to, rather than, taking more risks, they might be more serious about which pairs they list and how they manage their margin requirements. This could lead to less capital efficiency as users have to post more collateral for certain trading. I also saw that a guy posited that this may lead to more like M&A. So there's some interesting perspectives here on this situation, but we can kind of move past it and move into this Polymarket debacle, which kind of went under the radar a bit more than this HyperLiquid one.
Well, yeah, both of these kind of happen around the same time frame, and I think these are two like very contrasting occurrences, because you have HyperLiquid come in and provide that backstop for better or worse, decentralized or not, and then on the other hand, you have the UMA Oracle and this Polymarket bet that also got manipulated to a certain extent, but you didn't have a backstop. You didn't have someone come in and provide some sort of, correction to the manipulation. So I'll kind of, phrase or frame what happened. And then, yeah, would love the takes from our two guests here. So there was a market on Polymarket. It was a Ukraine themed market, and it was around the mineral deal between America and Ukraine. And what happened was that this was somewhat of a contentious deal. There was some reports that said it was around and it was signed. Others said that it hadn't been signed yet. And according to the market rules, this really should have resolved as too early. And that's something that the UMA Oracle has in place in order to protect things if someone proposes a result before there is a consensus of opinion out there. And so what happened was that this market was proposed, and then the way these markets work for resolution, everyone votes on whether or not that proposal is correct or incorrect. Now, in this market in particular, you had a user who's actually somewhat public. They have an ENS tied to their address. Their name is borntolate.eth, kind of a funny ENS. And they have accumulated.
It's like one of those like born too late to just like live in the metaverse and like have welfare, born too early to like experience Mars.
Exactly. And so, I mean, that's pretty indicative of the culture on Polymarket. It was like there's some funny individuals over there. And this particular user has accumulated a stake of UMA tokens worth upwards of probably like $2 to $3 million. It's 1.3 million UMA tokens, and this puts them in the top 5 of UMA stakers. And UMA, the voting process works so that it's not one vote, one address, one vote. It's if you have more UMA, you get more voting power. So this person was able to accumulate a large chunk of UMA to theoretically sway the outcome of this market. They voted yes, when in reality, the market should have resolved as too early. And people are speculating as to why this person voted this way. Now, the way this happened and the way this works is basically like, all these people vote and it's the wisdom of the crowd. And so people are basically saying, UMA's saying that, the Oracle worked as intended because everyone voted, the outcome resolved. But obviously Polymarket voters are very upset because they feel it should have resolved too early. Now, I think there's a couple things to take away here. And then I do want to hear from Marcin and Jakub. The real indication here is that 1.3, maybe $2 to $3 million of economic stake is just simply not enough. The amount of economic stake that is securing these markets, there was, these markets get upwards of 7, maybe 10 or $15 million in volume. And so for a top 5 voter in voting power to be, only $2 to $3 million of economic security, that's just simply not enough security around these markets to protect them from corruption. The other thing that I think is interesting here is that they didn't come in and it would have been Polymarket that would have came in and provided a backstop and refunded market traders out of their own pocket. They chose not to come in and do that because according to their spokesperson on Discord was that this was not a market failure in their words. And so they didn't provide that backstop, where in the past they actually have provided that backstop. So I think those are two particular takeaways. And then I've got one more thing that I'll kind of bring up after, but those are the two important things that I think are happening in the Polymarket sense. Jakub, Marcin, would love to hear your thoughts on this outcome.
Yeah, happy to start. As you may see, like Oracle is becoming interesting again. As we say, every day we got a lot of interesting challenges about what's the correct model, whether you should be like on one end of extreme, trust the code, trust the protocol. even when it evidently prints incorrect price because it was manipulated. That's a very good philosophical question. Like what's the true, whether it's like a social construct, whether it's like some arbitrary fact, or let's say ultimate truth. Probably not a topic we are able to answer during this podcast, but also it leads us to a way that oracles should be like very pragmatic and very open about their mechanism. And indeed, the problem was that no one was actually looking into the details of this security model. It was more like a social experiment done by UMA. It's interesting experiment. We are talking to many financial protocols, and people were afraid of playing this game with UMA, although it's like a very interesting concept, but still at the end of the day, you do not want to leave, let's say, the answer for the price of ETH that you have like few billions to let's say this social coordination experiment. So in my view, that was like too progressive, and there was like not enough of check and balances. But fortunately, I think that the landscape evolves. For example, we are very much engaged in the shared security movement. Openly speaking, it's still very early, but at least there is a capital to power that concept. So with Eigen, you get like over $10 billion. So that's a significant money. It's not also so easy, let's say, to tactically switch the voices, because you get like professional operators, there's some check and balance, and basically it's like a well-designed system, and it's very hard to create like properly decentralized security and safety mechanism. So kudos to Eigen. We are slowly migrating our security there, but also I'd say like with Oracle, you need to be decentralized to avoid the situation and even the temptation of printing a price, because in my view, it's something unacceptable. But also you cannot be, let's say, naive and jump to, let's say, this oversimplistic model of giving all of the power to token holders, because you could be gamed. It's the white west crypto.
Yeah, to Jacob's point, maybe coming back for a moment to HyperLiquid, like at the end of the day, the users of HyperLiquid are happy how the path like ended, right? So their core goal is to protect their core users, the ones that are staying with the protocol, even though it's against probably like the regular logic how we would settle the market. In UMA case, and let's say more even Polymarket, so they didn't decide to take action. I believe that was also probably a good decision, because if they had taken the action, then would be the question, okay, so now you're questioning the oracle that is underneath. So actually we should pause the whole protocol. We should like shut down all the stuff over here and then rethink like how we are logically like approaching that topic, right? I'm not right now aware what's the volume on some markets that can be potentially manipulated. And also I'm not an expert in this not price, rather oracle that dictates what is the truth of resolution of the market. But I believe right now people will be also looking at UMA token, how it behaves, and trying to also create some other engineering attacks, like more like capital attacks on the markets that are resolving. And also, like if Polymarket team is listening to that, like we're happy to jam about it. Maybe we don't have, let's say, a direct solution right away, but if there is like openness to discuss, we have some ideas around zk implementation, and also like probably narrowing down the possible markets that can be created, right? Because you can also just trim a bit the universe of markets that you can create, or at least trim the amount of volume that can be put into a market that can potentially be skewed in that way.
Yeah, there are there is quite a vast universe of markets on Polymarket. Like I am curious as to like any oracle that could resolve some of the markets on there. Like the earth flat is on there. Like is, are they going to find that missing airliner that went missing, Malaysia 19 or what, like there is no like one reputable news source out there that we can just trust. And I think if there was, it would be easy to just plug in like, okay, whatever this source of truth is, we just plug that in, we use that to resolve the market, and there would be no dispute. So yeah, I mean, it's prediction markets in general, I find fascinating, and I'm curious as to like how any oracle would be able to resolve some of these like rather vague or ambiguous markets.
Yeah, it's a tough question, and subjectivity is kind of that's what Eigenlayer is also trying to bring into the picture with their kind of intersubjective model. But subjectivity, when it comes to blockchain, is difficult. It's a problem yet to be solved in terms of determining the right answer. One more example for you guys, and I think this ties us back into the more kind of Redstone-centered conversation. Earlier this month, a user that goes by the name of Jameis lost about 14 ETH due to a faulty Oracle upgrade involving CB ETH, Coinbase ETH, and Pyth. So essentially what happened was the CB ETH USD price feed from Pyth remained frozen for 7 minutes. So basically just wasn't updating. And there was a price ratio distortion that triggered unnecessary liquidations. Basically that user lost their capital when it was not actually supposed to be lost. And then Pyth comes out and says basically that we were accurate and that someone else, either Morpho or this other kind of RE7 labs or the user, should have had an extra scheduler to update the feed. Seems a little bit odd to me. That the curator of this vault, they came out and said, okay, like, yeah, there was a timing mismatch, but they also said that push-based oracles, this is how they work, and next time they'll be better. And so Morpho, Pyth, or this vault company, RE7, basically didn't claim any responsibility, and the user lost its funds, and it was just kind of like another day in DeFi. So I know Pyth has like started to introduce redemption rate feeds and stuff like that, but what went wrong here, guys? And how is Redstone not susceptible to a similar incident? And what do you guys think about this one in particular?
Yeah, so I think all of the parties are right. Like there was a possibility to push the price on chain, but obviously you shouldn't delegate that to the end user, to some normie that was trying to earn a bit on the CB ETH. I think it's cruel just to say it's your fault. And basically like pushing data on chain, it's not a trivial task. Honestly, it's like a very few companies that can do it right. And also like we admit that it's a hard task. We spent more than 2 years building a lot of, let's say, fallback mechanism. So we are running a set of nodes, not like a single script that you can push price, and there's just another shadow collection of nodes that are watching the existing nodes and intervening if there's anything wrong. Also, we are using the gelato automation for some of the part as a third layer of defense, etc. There are like a different algorithms for the gas calculation. You need to have like tons of redundancies. You need to have like monitorings, checkers, all of this crazy engineering hard and something that is very familiar to the standard Web2 architecture. So all of these control systems and a lot of redundancies. And it's not easy to implement. So when I'm also like hearing that there is a solution when basically like anyone is able to push data on chain, I think it's like too much of an ask, because it's not easy. And if an oracle is also claiming to provide a service, it should take the responsibility of actually delivering the service and do it to the best of their abilities.
Yeah, I can just double click what Jacob said. Like, if you're an oracle, you deliver the price, period. Like, this is your job at the end of the day. Naturally, like there are those self-serve models and some people can opt for them. But then if someone is opting for them and everything is transparent, then the person that is, accepting that it's self-served is probably responsible for that. We can also play that game. But at the end of the day, if you're playing with, millions of dollars and sometimes even billions of dollars, probably it's not worth taking the risk. And this should be like very reliable and robust infrastructure, consistently delivering price by price by price by price. And there is a reason also, like, for so long, Chainlink was the only player like throughout 2020, 21, and 22, right? Because they were the first one probably to at scale provide that resiliency and ease of acceptance of them as a solution. Let's put it that way, because people were just not afraid that it can misprice at one point, right? And Pyth itself, like, we respect the team a lot, and I see them on many of the conferences, and I believe they're bringing a lot of also fresh wave to some of the topics. But specifically in terms of push price feeds, it's not the first time. We've also seen people not being fully, let's say, satisfied with at least the redundancy of delivering of that, right? And that's also the reason they've been mainly promoting themselves as the pull oracle, not the push one, like rather the pull oracle. And then people try using them in the push model, which, okay, works until it doesn't, as we already mentioned over here. And with oracles, it's about 365 days a year, 24/7, and making sure, especially when the market is stress tested, the volatility is high, gas spikes, RPCs are not responding as you would expect, right? Especially on other networks than Ethereum. Like, Ethereum is fine, but with new networks, many times RPCs are also playing funny games when you're trying to deliver the feed on chain. And we specialize just in that. Like, we have never had a mispricing or downtime event since the main launch of Redstone. And this is one of the core things we want to make sure we keep on delivering for our clients.
Marcin, could you kind of break down the difference between push oracle and pull oracles? I think it's relatively straightforward, like at a high level, but maybe you could highlight some of the key differences.
Of course, in pull model, by principle, you have the feeds available in a sort of a layer. In Pyth case, it's called PythNet. It's a fork of Solana. So they keep the updated price feeds in this fork of Solana, and then they use Wormhole for cross-chain data delivery whenever it's needed. So, for example, there is a user transaction on, let's call it Ethereum or Arbitrum or other chain that requires that price feed. So then Wormhole is responsible for delivering that data package. In Redstone case, we also have pool model. We keep those price feeds in data distribution layer. That is a kind of like a decentralized cache where the feeds are updated all the time. And an example, Gearbox or Curvenance are using that in production, or even Euler. And whenever there is a transaction via Euler user that utilizes Redstone as a price feed, then it's delivered on chain. So you can think of it in a simplistic way as on demand. Only when it's needed, then it's delivered to the destination chain. And let it be Arbitrum, Avalanche, Monad, or whatever else, right? Like, it's pretty like abstracted away. Whereas the push feeds is delivering the price to the destination chain, a specific one. Then one pusher, let's call it pusher for simplicity, is for Ethereum. The other one is for Avalanche. The other one is for let's call it BNB chain. And then every price feed has its own deviation threshold. So the difference between the last updated price on chain and the one that is available in the off-chain environment. So what's the difference between the two? And the moment it crosses the threshold, for each asset is a different one. Let's call it can be 1%, it can be 2%, it can be 10 bips. The moment it crosses, then the next update is sent. And the second usually condition is the time interval. So it can be 10 seconds, it can be 1 minute, it can be 24 days. So it's very much dependent on the asset itself. And usually the more performant chain you go to, the lower is the either deviation threshold or sometimes even just the update condition based on the time interval. And Redstone is an oracle that delivers both of those models, like across many blockchains. I think in push model we have right now almost 40, 35 for sure. So we are going like very broad, like Story, Protocol, Berachain, Unichain, and whatsoever. And in the well-established protocols such as Aave, Compound, forks of those, Morpho, Euler, Fluid, all of those are relying on the push model. So the one that was popularized by Chainlink and is also utilized across many chains. The pool model is usually either for derivatives and perpetuals or some new models. So people who had already the flexibility and plasticity of the protocol to implement the pool model because the integration is slightly different.
We talked about Pyth, we talked about UMA, we talked about the HyperLiquid Oracle. Like generally, it feels like it's different strokes for different folks. There's, different products, different oracles for different use cases. Some are more flexible, some are more directed. When you guys are looking at the Oracle landscape in general, how do you guys see yourself comparing to some of the existing solutions, Chainlink, Pyth, UMA, et cetera? Where do you guys see Redstone fitting in? And how do you guys stand out? What do you guys do in the Oracle space that's different architecturally and technologically than the rest of the oracles? Innovating finance, global, institutional, and on-chain. Deep liquidity to drive capital efficiency. Now, maximize yield on institutional-grade liquid staking with MegaETH. Unlock $1 trillion of capital via Bitcoin. All of this secured by Mantle's treasury of billions in stables and ETH capital pools. This entire ecosystem is coordinated by a vast network of seasoned VCs that are aiming to create the next generation of banking and financial technology. This is Mantle.
Okay, so let me hang out the technology and let's refer to our big friend, Chainlink. So to give a comparison, I think Chainlink made a very good decision when they started in 2017 to focus on the security and doing things like extremely well, but it was targeting the only single network. And basically, there was only Ethereum mainnet then, and they done a extremely amazing work in terms of stability, security, performance. But right now it's 2025, and I don't know if we are counting, but we are probably approaching like 1,000 of networks, different sorts. Some are like a very ephemeral, some are like a super interesting, fast growing, etc. So double tapping on the Marcin answer for the push model. Actually, we are like on 56 networks with a full push model, while Chainlink, which, as you may expect, that slightly deeper pockets than our and much larger headcount, is probably on a dozen or maybe like 20 networks. So there is something wrong in their design that we fix with Redstone, which is about the scalability. So basically, we decouple different services in oracles. Like there is a separate service that takes care of the quality of data, prices, and the price discovery, and we can reuse the same information across different venues. So the same pricing data could be consumed on Ethereum mainnet, on Arbitrum, Berachain, I know any other rollup that you just created like 15 minutes ago. It's still the same quality of data, and we can also quite easily expand with the set of relayers. We got a network of relayers. We just need to configure them, and they can start pushing price whenever we want. So it's more about this small but very important architectural decision, like how to make oracles truly scalable, so we can adapt to different use cases. So we can change a single module in our system, for example, to adapt to the high security of the proof of reserve systems, when we need to do like a tons of checks, for example, for the proof of reserve of the Bitcoin networks, when you get dedicated indexers and we need to push the price infrequently, like once a day, but it needs to be of extreme quality. Or we can focus on the speed when we work with networks such as MegaETH, when basically we are like flooding the network with, I think, thousands of requests per second. So it's about the scalability and it's about the versatility. So that's the difference between us and Chainlink.
The MegaETH integration is particularly interesting because you guys and MegaETH, like this is, from my understanding, an application of this architectural difference to the fullest extent, basically tapping into the most potential. Like the speed at which MegaETH is trying to operate necessitates an extremely agile oracle. how do you guys anticipate pushing price feeds as fast as MegaETH wants to move, like at the millisecond level?
Yeah, so it's a very fun experience, honestly. Like when you started playing on the DevNet, like we ran some initial benchmark, like the first integration, we ran to 25,000 of transactions per minute in the early stage, and we said, should we keep increasing the pace? Basically, like doesn't make sense to update like quicker than 1 millisecond, because technically yes, we can. We are getting data from multiple exchanges, and if the market moves quickly, then basically we can get, I think, more frequent updates than a millisecond, but doesn't make sense for the users. So they're like interesting questions. Also, it's like a very funny tech to work with if you get this kind of performance. And yeah, we are just waiting for the new use case. It's going to be fascinating, like to see like what people can get out of this, let's say, really extreme speed of getting new data, whether that will be like perps. We are talking to some protocols that will be trying to gamify, like how can you get most of the almost real-time updates.
Yeah, so one really interesting part about MegaETH's design in general, as well as single sequencer based L2s, is the latency aspect, and this is directly affected, or directly important to what you guys are attempting to do there as well, which is basically when you have a single sequencer, which for those in the audience is effectively like a piece of hardware in a data center. Being closer to this data center makes you have an information propagation advantage. This is what latency is all about. Basically, the speed of of lights and the dynamic of your fiber optic cables or whatever that you have. Being closer to this data center means that you have an advantage, an information advantage. So MegaETH is starting off with a single sequencer, but then going to start doing co-location rotations. So they're going to be rotating different sequencers across the world, I believe, over time. And so when you guys are thinking about building the Oracle integration for MegaETH, how do you guys consider latency as an important dynamic when thinking about that? And then is it any different than building a Oracle product for like a Arbitrum One or Optimism in terms of the sequencer setup being somewhat similar? How are you guys optimizing for the best latency on the market? And effectively, how do you guys potentially, if possible, fight against this information advantage or disadvantage from other parties participating in the network?
Yeah, it's a pretty good question. It's great that you are, let's say, putting a focus on some basic geography. So finally, we can prove that the Earth is not flat. Actually, yeah, we get like a really tangible results because yeah, it matters. The geography matters at the level of milliseconds. Basically, like it's up to half a second to travel around the world. And yeah, it's also a fun experience because I don't know if it's on purpose, but when MegaETH it not always is disclosing when they are like moving the sequencer. So for example, the testnet was supposed to be probably in Tokyo and they ended up in Miami. I don't know why. It's probably a nicer weather there. But we need to chase the sequencer. So we need to collocate, try to be as quick, as close in the physical proximity as possible in order to have this latency. And yeah, it's also a game of geography. You need to find a strategic location, because you need to take into account like where the data is being sourced from. So also you reduce that, but also the distance to the sequencer is crucial. But it's a different game. You need to focus on the old-fashioned, let's say, models for like trading application compared to what blockchain was previously about, like properly decentralized. For example, for Arbitrum, doesn't matter where we are pushing data from. It's still like, yeah, basically the same, and especially for Ethereum, like the data is being like properly propagated, merged, etc. With Mega, it's like a different game plan.
Yeah, like going back for a second about the question with Pyth and Chainlink, because I want to double click. I'm on the forefront of chatting with the dApps like day to day together with our go-to-market team. And I can tell you that we feel more and more of those like free solutions being like compared like all the time. Like I'm being asked about, hey, why you should choose between those three? Like what are the reasons? Like almost every other day or week. And this kind of examples, like the morpho style for push Oracle, is a tangible example, like which ones are good for those kind of use cases. And of course, Pyth is probably like better performing right now on Solana for perps markets and those kind of applications. But as Redstone, my goal is to be the most comprehensive and useful Oracle for DeFi applications. If you want to create something useful and innovative in DeFi, and you need some custom implementation with an Oracle, Redstone is there to help. We were the first Oracle to support Ethena. We were the first Oracle to support liquid restaking tokens. We're the first Oracle to create Lombard LBDC price feed. We are the primary Oracle for Securitize for the all tokenized funds, including BlackRock Biddle, Apollo Acred, and so on. And right now, this is, by the way, when we are recording it, it's not announced yet by publication. I hope it will. We are the primary Oracle for MegaETH testnet. So we are the official one. We deliver the price feeds over there. And let me double click on what Jakub said. We delivered on DevNet 25,000 updates per minute. It's crazy. I mean, like, this is the amount of updates that is already, you cannot comprehend that number with your mind, like how many updates per milliseconds even it is, right? And we are going to keep pushing to the boundaries. Naturally, like, the performance is very much dependent on how MegaETH itself is rolling out next updates to the testnet and all the other applications. And then specifically about the price fees we are going to deliver there, it will not matter for RWAs that we are going to update once a day, or even wrap staked ETH fundamental rate that is also updated like roughly once every 24 hours. It doesn't matter, right? But for Bitcoin, ETH, or even the stable coins, when there is like temporary arbitrage of USDT or USDC, like MegaETH gives you like just new spectrum of use cases because of its speed for the absolute professionals to tap into that super high frequency. And that's where we are right now exploring many use cases that we haven't even seen being discussed on other ecosystems because they were just outside of the possible map.
So, Marcin, MegaETH's advertising, I think it's 10 millisecond, or is it 100 millisecond block times or 10 millisecond block times? I think it might be 100. Regardless, though, if you guys are pushing 25,000 Oracle updates per minute, then what is the, like, basically what I'm getting at here is if MegaETH's claiming like they can do this many TPS and this many, this small of block times, but the Oracle provider can only update 25,000 or is currently updating 25,000 times per minute, then how does a chain have really, really fast block times? But if the data that they're getting in each block isn't updating at the same rate as the block times, then how is that going to work? Like, how is there not going to be a problem there if the chain is updating faster than the Oracle can provide the data for certain price feeds?
Let me just put a couple of numbers behind that. And I'm also very curious about this because there's 60,000 milliseconds in a minute. And so 25,000 Oracle updates in a minute means it's about 1 every 2 milliseconds.
Yeah, absolutely, you're right. So to clarify all of that, I don't know like what will be the final, let's say, block production rate with MegaETH. Like when we work on DevNet, it was like around 1-2 milliseconds per block time. And that's basically when we are hitting that limit with 25,000 updates per single feed. Makes sense. I think right now the testnet is way much slower. I think they're making an upgrade, but also like they allowed much many partners to join the network. That's probably what happens. So I think it's an order of magnitude slower right now, but we'll see like how it will evolve, whether they will be able to also, let's say, increase the performance with the number of connections new connections they are getting, or whether it will stay at the current level of the testnet. But yeah, you are right. It doesn't make like any sense to push it more often than a single block, but also we most likely will be pushing not only a single feed, but probably like a few dozen of feeds. So then you got this multiplication.
So the Oracle has to update as many times. It has to be as fast as the block time,
Exactly.
essentially, in order for it to work. And so this must be new for you guys then. Like this must be a completely new dynamic because no other chain is this fast. Or maybe like Avalanche and stuff just, you know, I don't know. Is it new or has it been a big engineering lift?
Yeah, it's pretty new. So we design a totally new node from scratch. As being open, like you need to sacrifice the decentralization. You cannot be decentralized working on sub-millisecond. So basically, it's like a new design. It's like focus on the extreme performance, but it's still like a very, very centralized and service. So you put first the reliability and the speed, and then sacrifice the redundancy and decentralization.
Maybe to give some more context on other networks, an example on Ethereum, like you have roughly like 12-second block time, right? And some of the feeds are updated once every 24 hours or even every an hour or even longer, right? So there are many blocks that the same Oracle update is present over there. And the blocker over here is not the performance of the oracles, because I believe right now any reasonable oracle can update once every 12 seconds. Here it's more a question of the gas cost, right? Because on Ethereum mainnet, the gas can spike very high. So if you were to do those updates every 12 seconds, you can calculate how many updates there have to be during a day. And then, especially when some project is doing an airdrop, for example, in Ethereum, I remember when Eigenlayer was doing the airdrop, like the gas like just went bananas. And we've seen many other instances that the gas just went high. Oracle cannot say, okay, now for an hour I'm not updating because the gas is high. Someone has to pay that gas cost, right? And then there's a question, is it an oracle? Then it's not the best business to run. Or is it the client that is requesting the price feed? Or is it the chain, right? And in Ethereum specifically case, they do not cover the gas cost for oracles, right? So it's a question of economics as well.
Understood. All right. Kind of zooming out from the MegaETH and into something that I know that you guys are working on, which is more around the zk Oracle side. But perhaps more of like a spicy pointed question for you is there's been a lot of talk around zkTLS and actually quite a few use cases that have emerged. One being Earnify, powered by a company called Opacity, I believe, and effectively they're able to bring a lot of this off-chain data on-chain in a very trust minimized way, in like a private way. I guess the question is, why are oracles going to stand the test of time if zkTLS can be better and private? And how are you guys adjusting to this idea? And why am I wrong? Like, why is zkTLS not better currently?
So I think right now the zkTLS is a bit like a Yeti. I think some people claim that's like possible to do it like totally trustless way. I haven't seen like single implementation. I think there's a lot of progress. And I understand like we started working with a few companies on that. So, but still you need to have this, let's say, trusted notary in the TLS system that will authorize that the communication happened. So it's not like fully finished in terms of implementation. So that's one of the elements. I think we are not there yet with the implementation of cryptography, and still you need to trust someone with the TLS. Second one is about performance. So proof generation still takes a lot of time. So it's counted in minutes. So comparing to, for example, the MegaETH, the other side of the spectrum that we talk about when we are talking about sub-milliseconds, then we are talking into, let's say, like a few minutes, maybe half an hour, etc. It's a lot of time to generate a proof. And then there's like a cost of validation, which is also like pretty expensive. So we cannot have like the oracle for not only pairs, but let's say like a standard pricing oracle that is being run on a Z case. We are not there yet, but I totally agree that it's like probably a direction when the services will be moving, and that's why we are also implementing this approach, especially for the solution that doesn't require speed, like the proof of reserve, but require like an extreme certainty that something happened.
So then you guys are going to go and implement zk-based oracles then, and that is different from zkTLS.
Yes, so for the, I think there's place for different set of solutions. So zkTLS is great for getting data from the endpoints. There's also a very interesting stream of use cases when you are like generating zk proofs for the old-fashioned email protocol. I know that a lot of, let's say, listeners may find it hard to believe, but the TradFi and the auditors are still running on sending an email that certify that these funds hold so many, let's say, assets under management. So that's another stream. And yeah, we'd love to probably pretty soon put like the first pilot using the TLS notary. I think the tech is getting there, and it would be like fascinating to offer something complementary for the speed.
Maybe to tap into that a bit more, some of those zk solutions claim themselves as Oracle killer, or like Chainlink is going to be obsolete and all redstones of the world are not going to be needed, which I believe is a bit of a marketing gimmick and overstatement, because there is a lot of customizability of oracles that is required that with zk will not be possible anytime soon. But as Jakub mentioned, like for specific use cases around less frequency and usually more traditional finance institutions related, we do see already like requests and ideas how to implement that. And personally, I keep very good relationship with some of the solutions around zk, and we just want to partner with them because we are a distribution channel. People already trust us and know that if we deliver something to the market, we are going to first make sure it's validated and it's secure and reliable, right? So if we are to go with one of those providers, we would first do like extensive testing phase and then invite them to our client base, like, and then creating these specific solutions. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's a killer. It's more like even expansion of what is possible with us ourselves, because we are not also an experts in zk, TLS, and other zero knowledge technologies.
Yeah. And these guys are, I guess, from the Oracle perspective, just to close this loop, what value does zk provide that by bringing zk and oracles together, you guys are able to do things that you weren't able to do before? So like what is that benefit and that advantage via adding zk?
For example, if we all agree that the source of truth is, I don't know, like a certain endpoint or certain domain in internet, for example, the one that published the results of the voting, and everyone on the market, let's say, agree that they're going to trust it, then you can create, using that TLS notary, a cryptographic proof that the data came from that source and it wasn't altered along the way. So that's the value. So you do not need to trust, let's say, like a crypto economic mechanism. You basically trust the cryptography that is based on the, let's say, the certificate on the domain, and using also the knowledge about the notaries that were involved, which is still pretty the trusted part. So that's how the zk can help the Oracle space. But also, as Marcin mentioned, it's a part of the larger machine. So yeah, it's for us, like, zk data will be another source of data, as we're currently using data from exchanges, from the DEXs, from certain aggregators. So it will be like another source of truth. But basically, as you may also like get from the conversation of us, like in oracles, you get different modules responsible for pushing data, for validating data, etc. So it will be great addition, but still a small part of the whole system.
Got it. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure chatting today. I think we're about out of questions here, and just think it's a good place to wrap. I appreciate the commentary around the state of the ecosystem, as well as the updates as to where you guys are focused specifically around high performance chains. I think that becomes the norm in the coming months into 2026. So being prepared for that with other similar chains like MegaETH, I think is going to be a successful strategy. And I appreciate the technical breakdowns as always, Marcin and Jakub. It's been a pleasure. Thank you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks. It was very fun. Maybe like just a finished touch. We've got a lot of other stuff coming into the pipeline in the upcoming weeks around Oracle extractable value. Monad itself is, expanding its testnet and then eventually coming to the mainnet. Babylon is launching mainnet, and we are very much focused on the Bitcoin narrative, created bespoke indexing technology for gathering the data directly from the Bitcoin chain to create the proof of reserves. So I would just say in the Oracle game, we are here for the long term and we are here for the innovation on the tech side. So we'll keep on crossing paths and hope to come back to the roll-up soon.
Fantastic, guys. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely.